Hello and welcome to LSE Focus. So Liverpool have just beaten Watford at Vicarage Road by 3-0, and it's a scoreline that I think it's fair to say flatters us a little bit. It certainly flatters the performance that we put in today. I don't think anyone's under any sort of delusions that that isn't the case, and to be honest, also flatters the match itself a little bit, because to be honest, it wasn't the best game in the world. Certainly there were spells in that where it was very, very boring. I'm thinking of that first 40 minutes in particular, because apart from the offside goal that Watford scored, and yeah, it was a fair call, it was offside and everything, but apart from that, there wasn't a single shot for about the first 40 minutes of the game. It was literally just Liverpool pass the ball around for a bit, then they lose it, then Watford try counter-attack, then they lose it, then Liverpool pass it around for a bit, etc, etc, etc. There was a really, really strong pattern of play that was absolutely dreadful to watch, and I think there are a few reasons for that. I think Liverpool just didn't really look like they were taking that much energy into the game. I thought the speed with which we played at for most of that first half was pretty dreadful, to be honest, and I think Firmino really summed up what was wrong about that first half, because he kept doing that thing that has been a recurring thing since he's been moved to that number 10 role away from the number 9 role and Salah's gone central and we've switched to this 4-2-3-1 where he drops so deep he's almost playing like a number 6, and at first I was thinking, why on earth is he doing this? Because it makes no sense. He shouldn't be there. He should be up further up the pitch, and to be fair to him, when we didn't have the ball, when we were trying to sort of maybe press Watford and get a counter-attack, he did stay far forward and was actually our second furthest forward player, just behind Salah. So that was some good positioning from him there. But he was dropping so deep at times, especially when we were in possession. And at first I thought it was his fault. And then I realised it's simply because we're playing so slowly. We're just knocking it round the back with no real creativity or even impetus to get the ball forward, that he had no choice but to try and drop deep and offer something a little bit more creative from deep, because he wasn't getting the ball. Mane, Salah and Shaqiri weren't getting the ball. There needed to be someone deeper in the pitch who was actually offering a bit of a creative spark. So I think that really summed up how we were playing, that our number 10 / number 9 in Roberto Firmino was dropping that deep to the point where he was almost playing alongside the centre-backs just to try and make something happen. And eventually in that first half, something did happen, because you have a 4-minute spell, I believe it was, where you had all 4 shots on target in that match were contained in that, not even the match, the first half, were contained during that 4-minute spell. You know, Liverpool had 3 pretty good chances. Watford had a good chance as well, and that was well saved by Alisson. I think that's the kind of save that we really want to see from him more often. And to be fair to him, he doesn't get many opportunities to make saves like that because our defence is so very good, but it's really nice to have a goalie that you can rely on to make really good saves in those kind of situations, especially given that he had absolutely nothing to do for the rest of the half. You know, the kind of focus that's needed to be able to pull off saves like that when you've had nothing to do for so long is incredibly, incredibly impressive, and something that is so important to being a goalkeeper for Liverpool. And so yeah, you had that mad spell where, again, we just started to play with a little bit more speed, and it felt so obvious that that was what was going wrong. And to be fair to Watford, they still defended very, very well, and that's one of the things that was frustrating about it, was because it was a sign that even when we played well and we were playing quickly and we were being more creative and players were making runs and then they were being picked out with those runs, Watford was still defending well and not letting us get too many chances. Ben Foster was having a good game as well, so it did feel at half-time like we might be heading for a 0-0, simply because Watford were actually playing pretty well defensively. They were incredibly tight. They had their midfielders sitting back. Their centre-backs were very, very narrow, and they just stopped Liverpool from doing anything really that exciting until the very end of that first half. And then the second half started, and it just felt like a different game from minute 1 of that second half, minute 46, if you want to put it literally. The play was just so quick. I felt like Watford got their tails up a little bit and started to think maybe they actually had a chance at winning that game. And to be fair to them, I reckon they might have done. I think Liverpool defended very, very well, especially throughout that second half, to make sure that Watford never really got too much of a sniff on goal. You know, especially even when we went 3-0 up, they were still creating chances. They were still putting us under pressure, and Liverpool did very, very well. Players like Van Dijk, who put in some fantastic tackles and clearances at the end of the game to make sure we got a clean sheet. But I think Watford got it into their heads that they might actually have something to get out the game, and that's what actually brought it to life, because suddenly we had a little bit more space to attack. I think Jurgen Klopp definitely gave the players a kick up the backside in the half-time team talk as well, because they looked like a different team coming out for that second half, and suddenly the game sprang into life and it felt like we were going to see a few goals. And I'm pretty sure it's before we scored that you have the penalty shout. I'm just going to have a quick word on that. don't think it's a penalty, and maybe our judgment has been clouded as Liverpool fans because we get so few penalties these days that we've forgotten what actually even counts as a foul in the box. But I think the fact that Robertson pulls his leg away and the contact is so minimal, it's nowhere near enough to actually take the player down. Anyone who thinks that's a penalty needs to seriously reassess their ideas of what is and isn't a foul and what is enough contact to take a player down and what isn't, because there is no way in hell that that was a penalty. And I think the referee, John Moss, you know, I've maligned him before on this channel, as some of you may know, but I think he did get that decision spot on. And then obviously not long after that, you have the Salah goal. Again, it's one of those instances where we suddenly just decide, you know what, let's play proper football. Let's pick out the players that are making great runs. You know, Sadio Mane, who had a really difficult first half because no one was passing to him. No one was picking out his runs. Suddenly someone does it in that second half and he plays in a great ball to Mohamed Salah. It goes through Foster's legs. I feel a bit bad for the fella because, to be honest, he had a pretty good game and there were times when it felt like he was keeping Watford in it. So for him to come away having conceded 3, you know, even though he is the goalie for the opposition, I do feel a little bit of sympathy for him, especially when he concedes like that. But, you know, Mo Salah at the moment, it does feel like he's gone back to that stage where everything he touches turns to gold, which is what we had last season, is what was so crucial last season and what was so helpful today, because it gets us that breakthrough. It stops us having a nervy last 20 minutes, because I think if Salah doesn't score then the game is either 1-0 to Liverpool, 0-0, or even 1-0 to Watford. The fact that he scores there means that the floodgates can open a little bit later on and just calms everyone's nerves and stops it being almost random who ends up winning the game. So a really, really important goal from Mohamed Salah. The kind of goal we haven't really seen enough from him so far this season, but it does seem like he's starting to find his rhythm in terms of scoring those types of goals. You know, we had it against Huddersfield in the first game after the last international break. We've had it today. I'm sure we've had another couple of times where he scored some crucial goals. So fantastic to see that kind of play from Mohamed Salah, and it's nice, of course, to see him smiling with his celebration. And then you've obviously got the absolute screamer of a free kick from Trent Alexander-Arnold, proving that I personally know absolutely nothing about football, because I was crying out for Mo Salah to take it. I was thinking, surely Trent is just going to run over this one. He's got to leave it to Mo. Mo's having a good game already. He's scored. You know, he's got his tail up. He's looked all right in terms of his dribbling and everything. You've got to let him have the free kick. But Trent Alexander-Arnold just smashes it over the wall. It's a beautiful free kick. Trent Alexander-Arnold, you beautiful, beautiful man, because that was game, set and match from there on. Apart from a couple of moments in the 80th minute or so where I suddenly had really horrible flashbacks to that 2-2 draw against West Brom, and I thought, actually, if anyone's capable of throwing away a 2-goal lead against a not very good side away from home, it is Liverpool Football Club. But apart from that, that goal basically wrapped up the game. It was a really nice free kick. Again, I feel bad for Ben Foster because there was nothing he could really do about it, but hopefully that gives Trent Alexander-Arnold a little bit of confidence, because he hasn't quite hit the heights of last season yet. And to be fair, I think we're harsh on a lot of players because of how good the second half of last season was and because of that Champions League run. I think we forget that in the first half of last season as well, none of the players were playing as well as they did later on in the campaign. So I think we're a little bit harsh on all of our players, but it does feel like Trent Alexander-Arnold has been slightly lacking in terms of his mojo, and hopefully that free kick allows him to kick on, get a little bit better and start becoming the Trent Alexander-Arnold that we know he can be. And obviously at the end of the day, he's 20 years old. He has got plenty of time to come properly good. And then of course you've got the Firmino goal as well. Bit of a weird one. I didn't even realise it was in at first because it just happened so strangely. Again, you got to feel for Ben Foster because he makes a good save from the Sadio Mane shot and then it just goes straight to Firmino. Watford are obviously knackered by that point because they've been ploughing away, trying to get a goal to get back into the game, and then Liverpool just countered really well. It was great play from Andrew Robertson to ride the challenge and carry on going. He picks out Mane so well. Bad luck Mane for not scoring, but Firmino gets the goal. I think it's actually the end of quite a long drought in the league as well for Firmino, so that is great to see as well. And like I said, bit of a weird goal, but at the end of the day they all count, and it does mean that Liverpool came away with a 3-goal win that, you know, maybe they didn't deserve it by that kind of margin, but I think at the end of the day we did still deserve the win because our attacking wasn't amazing at times, but I think when we hit the heights, we really did sort of click into 3rd, 4th, even 5th gear. Those moments like that first goal where suddenly we pick out Mane's run, he belts it down the line and then he whips it into Salah. We didn't have many of those in the game, but there were enough to show that we clearly had more quality in our starting 11 and in our substitutes as well than Watford did. And I think if you're a bit miserable after that win because we didn't play that well, I think it's worth remembering that Vicarage Road is a more difficult place to go than a lot of people give it credit for. Like us in the pre-match video, you only have to look at our past results there under Jurgen Klopp to realise that playing Watford away is a very difficult game. We've lost there in the past. We've had terrible, terrible draws there in the past where we've defended awfully from set pieces. We've had to jam 1-0 wins there in the past. And you also look at teams like Spurs who've gone to Vicarage Road already this season. They were roughed up. They couldn't deal with set pieces and stuff like that. And they lost their game 2-1. But that didn't happen to Liverpool today because they defended fantastically. I thought Van Dijk was ace. I thought Lovren, I'm going to give him a wee shout out because I thought he was really, really good. You know, I think considering he'd been drafted in to replace Joe Gomez and he probably wasn't meant to start this game, or certainly not meant to start this game with Alexander-Arnold alongside him. I think if he had started this game, it probably would have been with Gomez at right back or something like that. And I thought he just did really well. He was physical. He dealt with Troy Deeney's threat. He passed the ball pretty nicely as well. And I just thought he didn't look out of place alongside Virgil van Dijk, who also had a very, very good game. It's a bit disappointing about the Henderson sending off. I think some people are having a go at him, but I think to be fair, a lot of the time he was left as the kind of player to cut out the counter-attack. And for starters, he's not really that kind of player. He's not a Fabinho-type defensive mid. So already he's been sort of hung out to dry there. And I think once he gets his yellow card, he has to swap places with Gini Wijnaldum. You've got to say, okay, Gini, you be the one who stops the counter-attacks and maybe draws a yellow card. And Henderson gets a little bit further forward. So I think there was an error there to basically leave Henderson marking Isaac's success. And I can see why he gets frustrated. He obviously has that 10 minutes where he just makes lots and lots of dirty fouls. So a fair sending off. Disappointing that we won't have him available for the Merseyside derby, but it does mean he'll probably play in the game against PSG, so that's not too bad anyway. And yeah, I think it was a bit disappointing that we just hung him out to dry by making him make all those yellow card fouls when really we should have allowed someone else to do it. But you know, that's a very, very minor blot on what was otherwise a really, really good result for Liverpool. Not the best performance, but once again we got the job done. We pretty much keep the pace with City. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens later on with the game between Tottenham and Chelsea. Hopefully we can extend our lead in second place and turn this title race into a two-horse race, and hopefully one day, maybe, just maybe, catch Manchester City. Apart from that, thank you guys very, very much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, hit that like button down there, hit that subscribe button there if you're new around here. Check out some of the other videos that have been out on the channel over the past few days, weeks, months, whatever. Don't forget to follow at LSU Focus TV on Twitter. I'll be back either tomorrow or Monday with the pre-match content for the game against PSG. Until then, bye for now.